Hello, everyone. So let's see what's going on over here. It says here, exploring Gen Z males' views on feminism in the shadow of Andrew Tate's influence. Oh, what happened now? Huh? What happened now? A recent study has indicated a growing skepticism among Gen Z males regarding the benefits of feminism, with a notable faction viewing it as a more detrimental than constructive. Viewing it as more detriment. A poll encompassing over 3,600 individuals revealed that approximately 1 in 4 young men age 16 to 29 believe it is now more challenging to be male than female. Why would they now believe that? That's always been the case. Like, it's literally always been the case. Uh, This emerging attitude coincides with the rising prominence of social media figure Andrew Tate, a controversial influencer who commands the attention of a significant portion of this demographic. Tate, a former kickboxer with millions of followers, is known for his misogynistic rhetoric, right? And is currently facing legal troubles, including charges of human trafficking. Like, like this word, man, is so misused nowadays that it's crazy. And the weird part is that is one of those words that like you this might be considered misogynistic, but it's one of those words that you can tell that you can tell the women that don't actually pay attention or even form their own thoughts or opinions because they regurgitate this word and they use it all the time just because if someone doesn't like them or they don't like what someone says, they're like, oh, it's misogynistic. That's not what the word means. Like his his talking points have nothing to do with an animosity or a hatred of women. So he's not misogynistic in any way. You could say it's sexist. It's definitely sexist, but it's not misogynistic. This is completely wrong. This is a completely wrong use of the word. The research conducted for King's College London's Policy Institute and the Global Institute for Women's Leadership, which is sexist. See that? You see? He's sexist. You're sexist. But for some reason, he's a misogynist and you're not. Highlighted that 16% of Gen Z males feel feminism has done more harm than good, compared to 13% among the over 60s. I I would say for me, feminism have done more good for me personally because I am not a traditional person. I do not want to live a traditional life. I would hate to live in the 60s. I would hate to live under those rules. I just can't. I'm a fornicator. I'm not religious. I'm an atheist. Like I just cannot live under those rules. But for society, for society as a whole, and the cohesion of our social dynamic, and for our economy, and for just a social security, and the a good environment for children and all that stuff, feminism has done harm. It definitely has. But for me personally, it's good stuff. Um, these figures represent a concerning potential for division among future generations. The term toxic masculinity deemed unhelpful by 37% of young men. Only 37%? It's a lot of young men that don't really care, huh? It is very unhelpful to say that someone is toxically masculine just because you don't like their expressions or the way they do things. It's crazy that people will accept certain behaviors that just like, oh, that's just, that's just how women are. That's what the, women are more emotional, so you have to talk to them a certain way. You got to watch your tone when you talk to a woman. It's our feelings, all of that. People accept that. It's fine. It's a woman's nature, is whatever. But people would say, oh, okay, men are more aggressive. They would say that if they wanted to mean men. They were like, oh, men are more aggressive. But if a man expresses himself in an aggressive way, now that's toxic. Now that's problematic. Like, how is that problematic? If you can identify that that's his nature for men to be more aggressive, why is it wrong for a man to express himself in an aggressive way? He's not attacking anybody. His words are a little bit more aggressive. He's a little bit more direct because he's trying to get to the point. Why is that a problem? Why is that toxically masculine? If it's like it's part of if you demonize someone's nature and you tell them it's wrong for them to be themselves, but it's okay for the other people to be themselves, but just as long as you being yourself doesn't hurt their feelings, and you have to accept them being themselves, otherwise you're insecure and you're threatened by them. Just like it's a weird sort of mental manipulation, gaslighting stuff going on that doesn't make sense. And that is why young men are just not jiving with the Gen Z uh, narrative. This resistance, as Professor Bobby Duffy from the Policy Institute notes, marks a break from the trend where younger generation usually align with the progressive social norms. Yeah, because you can't tell people that what is happening is contrary to what they're seeing. If they're experiencing life in a way where like, oh, being a man is hard. Like you seeing girls your age, you're 19, 20, you seeing girls your age partying on yachts, and they're like on Instagram, and they're living up life, and you're just like broke and you can't do anything. And you're like, and people are turning around and telling you you're privileged because you're white and a male, and you have all this privilege and you live in a great life, and it's just like, and women are oppressed, and you're like, what? Where is this happening? You know what I mean? It doesn't, if it doesn't make sense to you, you just can't sell people on stuff by blatantly lying to them while they can see the truth. Like you at least have to cover up the truth a little bit and make it look like something else. At least make it look like they're privileged before you tell them they're privileged. Like give them some perks and be like, oh, look how privileged you are. You have all these perks. You know what I mean? You don't even give the men anything there where they can be like, okay, we like at least before where you're like, okay, like look at this, you can vote and these women can't vote. You're obviously privileged. Like at least you convince them then. Even then it's debatable, but at least you can kind of convince them. But nowadays they don't have anything where they can be like, oh, we have special privileges. Like they don't have it. Anyways. Tate's following is most substantial among ethnic minority men, with over a third resonating with his views on male identity and gender roles. Yes, it is substantial among ethnic minority men because the white men can't do that because they're already scrutinized and they're already treated as the villains. So they can't express themselves as they used to be able to do that. Or they're going to be labeled as hateful and bigoted and all that stuff. In stark contrast, only 12% of white men seem to agree. They seem to agree because they can't really express themselves anymore because they are the boogeyman of the racial war. Tate, who is of mixed heritage, has woven a personal narrative such as his conversion to Islam and commentary on racial and physical attributes into his appeal. Tate's message to young men to take control of their lives, aspire to be influential rather than content, resonates with those searching for a sense of agency and purpose. his narrative offers an alternative to the slow, policy-driven process of social change, which can be particularly enticing to young men from disenfranchised communities. As youth worker Colin Brent notes, Tate's rhetoric of immediacy is more tangible to them than abstract policies on inequality and racial discrimination. The influence of figures like Tate and Canadian academic Jordan Peterson, who is seen favorably by 30% of young male demographic, poses a challenge to traditional feminist ideals and underscores the role of social media in shaping perspectives. As Professor Rosie Campbell from the Global Institute for Women's Leadership, I don't know what the hell that is, and that sounds ridiculous, suggest the predominance of social media as a news source for Gen Z could partially explain the current sentiments. The interplay between the feminist zeitgeist embraced by young women and the lack of equivalent narratives for young men may contribute to the attraction to influencers who promise sense of identity and direction. I would say this isn't new. This isn't a new dynamic. Like you could even look at the 70s as when you the birth of the whole hippie movement. It's kind of the same thing, right? Uh, First, they were protesting the war, like because a lot of those men didn't want to go to war. And even nowadays, a lot of men don't want to go to war. Not only that, you have this whole thing where women are saying they're oppressed and they couldn't vote and all this stuff. And then, oh wait, but voting was a privilege that you're allowed because you had to sign up for war, and there's a possible war that might happen, and there's all these other wars that are happening in other countries, and it just creates this environment that happened in the 70s where a possible war could come up, and then there's this dynamic in people's brain where they're in the prospects of their future, there's a possibility that their lives could be cut short, and there's a bunch of conflicts that are happening that is separate from them, but is pushing on them because there's news of it happening all over the world. The whole Ukraine thing was big for a while, and these things are just in people's consciousness, and so you have the protest from the war that you had in the 70s, and then first they're protesting the war, and then all of a sudden they're doing all kinds of drugs, and they're trying to expand their mind, and when it comes to expanding their mind, they have all this movement, and they're getting all these people together, and then they notice, oh wait, there's men and women, and now it's all free sex, and there's all this fornication going on, and it's just the same thing now. It's just like feminism came along, and women got the right to vote, and now a lot of women could serve in the military, and then there's a possibility that women could also get drafted, and there's the free sex in this new generation, and people are all sexed up, and they're all in situationships, and no one is committed to anybody, and no one wants to get married and start a family and do anything, and it's all about work, and you know what I mean, and it's the same stuff, same thing that happened before. It's going to happen again. uh Human memory is short because our lives are short, and we're prone to repeat things over and over until the circumstance change to the point where there's a slight variation in our actions, but the process is pretty much the same, the narrative is the same, the story is the same. It's just that the environment changes and the arguments change. Anyways, until next time.